bad spot for the Raiders, and I don't see the Raiders being as motivated as Tampa in that one. My other one, you guys giving me shit for the LA Rams +4. That's the other play. I think that is the play of the week, though. I think it's just a spot where Buffalo just gets caught, man. I mean, they just clinched the division. They're coming off a couple of huge wins in a row. I don't like the spot at all for Buffalo. So playing the Rams plus the points there. And I did talk about, you guys didn't like my Monday night analysis either, which I'll talk about that more tomorrow morning, even though I broke down the whole game basically last night as well. But I do like Dallas plus the points. That's like the first one that I'm leaving off of my card there. Let's look at the market real quick here, I guess, for the NFL real quick before I switch over to the other sports. So I do have one play in hockey, one in the NBA, and two in college basketball today. As far as the market read on these games, Tampa Bay Buccaneers it doesn't look great. It looks like the public is on them with less of the cash on them now, but I just don't see it for the Raiders, man. So that's the way it is. And then Bills Rams. I mean, the Bills still do have the slight cash percentage right now, but I am pretty confident in the analysis on that one. I know there are numerous professionals that are going to be coming in on the Rams in that one. So that is the breakdown there. Let's go to college basketball here. We do have some somewhat big games on the Sunday slate here, even though it's a shorter card. Maryland Purdue right up at noon here in less than an hour now. This is actually going to be a pretty good game, I think. A big Big Ten matchup here. Maryland kind of flying under the radar, but they are quite a good team, actually. They've been playing well, and they're coming off another blowout win of Ohio State. And I know Ohio State's not ranked, but Ohio State's a pretty solid team, and absolutely annihilating them like that is not really something to overlook. So Maryland, I mean, they're a pretty good team, although this is going to be a difficult spot for them. This is their first true road game of the season, but they should be up for it as it is Purdue. But I think Purdue is also probably going to be up for it. I mean, they're in a bounce back spot right now after they lost to Penn State the other night, which that was a win for me. I was on Penn State in that one. Penn State, I thought that the pacing collision in the spot for Purdue was not very good. Purdue likes to slow the pace down. Penn State likes to speed it up. So in this one, though, Purdue is getting the money right now. They're up from 3 to 4.5. 69% of the tickets, 89% of the cash. So it does look like the money is coming in on the Purdue side. So that would be the market read there. So I would not want to come in and try to take a shot with Maryland, even though it does look like a short line there. You're seeing like that number 8 team in the country is only laying 4.5 points. In a way, it almost looks too easy to take Purdue. But in this case, I think Purdue may be the correct side. Kansas is at Missouri here. Missouri is kind of flying under the radar, too. I mean, they're not as good as Kansas. And I think Kansas is overrated, being the number 1 team. But Kansas, they're coming off of their first loss of the season to Creighton. So the question is, do they bounce back from that, or do they have like a hangover effect? Because when you're the number 1 team like that, not really the number 1 team, but the number 1 ranked team, and you're rolling along and you have your first loss, and then you have to try to bounce back from that and play again. Sometimes it is a momentum stopper, and it can hang you over a little bit, and it is going to be their second straight road game here after that was their first road game of the season, where I mentioned that I did lean to Creighton in that one. This one, I'm not quite as sure. I mean, it could potentially be a hangover spot. And you're looking at a Missouri team that's sitting at 7-1. Their only loss is their only step-up opponent, though, against Memphis. But they played pretty competitively in that game, losing by 8. So this Missouri team, I think we don't really know how good they really are yet. But they're going to show up for this game against Kansas. I mean, this is going to be one of their bigger games on the slate here. Basically their biggest game until conference play starts. And they are undefeated at home right now. Although, again, they haven't really faced anybody strong at home. So I don't know how much you can really take away from that. Kansas, they're up from 5 to 6.5 with juice. It looks like it's teetering on 7. 71% of the tickets, 55% of the cash. So according to the market read, Kansas is getting the public action. Public expecting them to bounce back here, not buying Missouri's record. And I'm not sure I quite buy it either because, again, they've faced a really weak schedule so far. So Kansas is the more battle-tested of these two teams. But, again, it could be kind of a hangover spot after suffering that first loss. So I don't want to get involved in the game, but I would slightly lean to the Missouri side, especially looking at the market read in that one there. And then really, I think those are kind of the only two big games in the afternoon. Oh, and Texas A&M and Texas Tech is actually a pretty interesting one as well. Big Texas battle here of the former Big 12 team against the current Big 12 team. Texas A&M, I mean, they're the team that has faced a way more difficult schedule. I mean, they've faced Ohio State. I mean, I know they lost to UCF. UCF's not that bad either. Ohio State, even though they're out of the rankings right now, they are good. Oregon is definitely good. Creighton, not as good as we had them ranked at the start of the season, but still not bad. Rutgers and Wake, I mean, I don't know. Rutgers, I don't think is that good a team. Wake, I'm not really sure, but still, if you look at Texas Tech's schedule, Texas Tech has faced a significantly weaker schedule than Texas A&M. I mean, who have they faced that's even good? I mean, the best team they faced is Syracuse, maybe, and they lost to St. Joe's in that tournament there, whichever tournament that was. So I don't know. So Texas A&M is certainly the more battle-tested team. I believe they are the better of the two teams. They are the team that's ranked, and Texas Tech is not. I don't know if Texas Tech has taken like a step down because they were good the last couple of years. They were a very good like defensive team. I know they're in the tournament multiple years in a row, basically every one of the recent years. Texas A&M does have a game against Purdue up in 6 days, but I don't think they're going to overlook a game against Texas Tech. I mean, this is a big Texas rivalry, and Texas Tech has actually been the better of the two teams in Texas in basketball for a while. So I do think both teams are going to show up for this, and if that's the case, I would lean towards the better of the two teams, which is Texas A&M. Texas Tech is actually public, sitting at a 1-point favorite, 66% of the tickets and 53% of the cash. So looks like the cash percentage is not as heavy on the Texas Tech side. Texas Tech, interesting that they're public, man. It's like the public is ignoring that Texas A&M is ranked, and I guess they're just looking at Texas A&M having 2 losses and Texas Tech being at home and having 1 loss. I don't know, but I would lean to the Texas A&M side for all the reasons that I just said, especially that they're the far more battle-tested of the two teams there. And then I'm going to get to my 2 plays here. Yeah. Oh, I have not added them yet. No, I haven't added them to my, let me see what my plays actually are here first, because I haven't added them to the banners yet here in StreamYard. Let me see here. We got, okay, that one. Yeah, all right. I haven't added my NBA play or my NHL play in here either. And I don't know how confident I am in my NHL play, although I still like the situational read on it. So I do have 2 college basketball plays in this later slate of games here. The first one is Texas, -1.5. UConn, I know they're still ranked. They're at 25. I think they might still be taking the public action because they're UConn, even though they do have 3 losses now. I don't think this is a very good spot for UConn, man. So I'm going to play the Texas side here. UConn is still the better team, as the odds makers are telling you that Texas is not getting a full home court advantage here. But UConn, I mean, these losses don't exactly look that terrific. I mean, Memphis is in the rankings. They're pretty good, but Colorado is not a very good team. Dayton is like decent, but probably like in the 30s to 40s range as far as how good they are. So UConn, those losses don't exactly look that great. And now they're coming off basically their biggest win of the season, statement win against Baylor. That was a big win for UConn, man. And if you look at this game, I mean, I don't know if there's anything to really take away from it statistically other than UConn definitely won the turnover battle in that game. And that was about it. I mean, statistically, it was a close game. By the score, it was a close game. Big win for UConn. And now they have to go on their first true road game. They have to go to Austin, Texas, and play this game. A lot of times, the first true road game of the season is not an easy thing to do, man. And who does UConn have up next? Gonzaga, who's one of the best teams in the country. I know Gonzaga, I think they wound up losing that game that I had on last night in overtime in a tough game, but that's still a big game. This might be a sandwich spot for UConn, man. Even though I know it's Texas, they have a big name, but Baylor is a ranked team. Gonzaga is a ranked team. Texas is not. So, I mean, it is possible that UConn does not show up with full focus in this game. They have not faced a true road game yet, like I said. So that's going to put them in a difficult spot as well. And Texas, they're coming off an easier win. It was their first true road game. They beat North Carolina State, which I know Texas, they haven't faced a very difficult schedule either. The best team they faced was probably Ohio State, and they lost the game. They beat Syracuse, and they beat North Carolina State, NC State in their most recent games. So UConn is still the more battle-tested team out of the two, but I like Texas in this spot, man. I mean, you got the returning champs coming into your place here. I believe they're back-to-back champs, right? So that's a big deal for Texas, man. I mean, you look at your upcoming schedule, you got nothing else on the slate coming up here. As far as the games you have left in non-conference play, this is your big game, man. So this is the game where Texas is going to want to show up for all those reasons. So give me Texas in this one. And Texas is the better defense as well. You look at KenPom. UConn has actually been struggling mightily defensively. This seems to not be that UConn team of the last couple of years, man. They're down in like the 90s in KenPom's defensive efficiency rankings. That's not very good. So they have not been playing great defense. As far as the tempo, I mean, UConn still does like to slow the pace a bit. I think Texas plays slightly more up-tempo than UConn does, but not by a whole lot. So I don't think there's really like a huge pacing collision there, although I have to look again. But this is more about the spot, man. So it's going to be Texas -1.5 for me in that one. And Texas is also undefeated at home, and you're pretty much just asking them to win the game here, although I know they've not faced an opponent as good as UConn yet at home. But that's the way I'm going in that one. And then the other game I'm playing is the Duke-Louisville game. I like how this sets up for Louisville, man. The public is going to want nothing to do with Louisville in this game. And I didn't look at the let me see here. Where's Connecticut here? Just to show you the market percentages here. It does look like the market is strongly on UConn here, and I just don't agree with it. Texas is down from 3 to 1 with juice. 61% of the tickets on them and 72% of the cash on UConn. I don't agree with it, man, for those reasons that I just said. I'm surprised that the public isn't still coming in on UConn. I thought they were because it is still UConn, and they are still the ranked team. And they just beat Baylor, so I thought the public would be back on the UConn train because the public is so affected by recency. I thought they were going to look, oh, UConn's back. They beat Baylor. That's fine. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to shape up. This is at 5 p.m. Eastern, but I like the UConn side. I'm ignoring the market in this one for the most part. And then I'm sort of against the market in the Duke-Louisville one, too. Duke down from 9 to 8.5 with juice. 66% of tickets, 81% of the cash. So for now, it does look like the cash is coming in on Duke. This is at 6 p.m. Eastern, but I like the Louisville side in this one, man. I mean, Duke, they're ranked 9th in the country. They're actually underranked, in my opinion, in KenPom's opinion. KenPom's got them like 3rd in the country. But Louisville's just kind of flying under the radar, I think. Louisville's not exactly a bad team, and I think KenPom has them in like the 30-somethings ranking-wise. But this is all about the situation, man. I mean, Duke, yeah, I know they faced one road game already, and I lost on that game. They actually beat Arizona. Arizona may not be as good as we thought that they were to start the season. So Duke does have one road game out of the way, but still, I don't think this is going to be easy going to the KFC Yum Center to face this revitalized Louisville program here. As Louisville was completely down in the dumps for a while, basically without Rick Pitino, who I believe is now at St. John's, still the very old Rick Pitino over there. Louisville had some really bad years, but now Louisville, I think people don't realize that Louisville's kind of on the upswing again here. Duke, look at what they're coming off of, man. In 2 of their last 3 games, 3 of their last 4, really, they had big games. They played a lot of big games. So, yeah, I know they are battle-tested, but they played Kansas really close, had that game against Seattle, and then blew them out. And that was after they beat Arizona on the road in their first true road game. And then what are they coming off of? This is really their legitimizer game, man, because beating Arizona was a good win on the road, but they didn't really have that real statement win yet because there are other teams that they face, Kentucky and Kansas, like the teams that are real highly ranked here still now. Duke had not beaten either of them and lost close both times, had lost as a favorite to both of them. So Duke still didn't really have that statement win, and now they do. They just beat Auburn, man. That is a huge win. Auburn, KenPom, I think, still has them as the top team in the entire country. That was a big game for both teams. Big win. I mentioned that game on my show. I thought it was a big game. I thought that maybe the Auburn side, which side did I lean to? Maybe I did lean to Duke in that one. I don't even remember. I think maybe I did because Duke's being a little bit underrated. But Duke, they had a great game in this game, man. I mean, both teams shot 40% from 3. That's a little bit of an outlier. But look at this. Duke only had 4 turnovers in the game, and that's probably something you're not going to see again, especially when they're having to go to a Louisville, go to face a Louisville team here. Louisville likes to play a bit faster than Duke does. Duke likes to play pretty slow. They like to play in the half court. So if Duke is going to get sped up in this game, and a lot of times the home team can push or can control the pace a little bit more, Louisville's going to try to push the pace. And if they speed up Duke, and that's not a pace that Duke wants to play in, you could see Duke turn the ball over a little bit more in a situation like this, and especially because they're also the road team here. I think Duke's in a letdown spot coming off that huge win over Auburn, man. And Louisville, I mean, they're not a better team than Duke. I'm not going to try to argue that, but you're only taking 8.5 points here. I mean, you are taking 8.5 points here, so you are only asking them to win the game. But look at what Louisville's coming off of, man. I mean, they faced a pretty difficult schedule as well. I mean, they lost to Tennessee, who was one of the best teams in the country. They crushed Indiana, who I know Indiana's overrated. They beat West Virginia, who's not horrible. Lost to Oklahoma, who's looking pretty good right now. And then in their most recent game, they got absolutely annihilated by Ole Miss. I lost a play on this one. I mean, Louisville just, their shooting has just been way off right now. I mean, what can you say? Look how poorly Louisville shot in this game. 33.3% from the field and 16.7% from three. I don't think it's going to continue. I know Louisville's three-point shooting percentage has been bad so far, and I know Louisville lost one of their best players coming into that game, but I still think Louisville, they're going to be a competitive team. I mean, these are real outlier percentages. In Mississippi, shooting 56.7% from the field and 40% from three. That's an outlier as well. Louisville actually out-rebounded them. We're better than them on the glass. I mean, this Louisville team is not as bad as they looked in this game. So this is a little bit of a misleading blowout loss result here, and the public's going to want nothing to do with Louisville here because they look so bad in this game. They look awful, man. Duke coming off the legitimizing win, basically. That's like the legitimizer game, man. As I like to point out in college, football and basketball, when you have that first real, like, legitimate win against a real legitimate team, you want to look to maybe fade that team in the next game because it is a letdown spot coming into the next game. So give me the points with Louisville in this one, even though I know Louisville wants to play faster than Duke. But the other thing is if Duke likes to play in the half court, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to get up and over a bigger number as a road favorite as well. So if it's going to turn into more of a defensive team, and Louisville is actually pretty good defensively. They're actually better defensively than offensively so far. Their offensive efficiency rankings are not very good just because their shooting has been way off so far, but they can play defense. So if it's going to be a defensive game as well, then I like taking the points as well. So Louisville will be the side there. And then we do have UCLA and Oregon is actually a pretty good game on the Big Ten Network. That is so weird to see this being a Big Ten game. And that is also at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's one of the bigger games on tap as well here. It looks like there are no games after the 6:30 slate because I guess Sunday night, there's no college basketball because Sunday night's for football, man. Although I guess Sunday afternoon is not. But UCLA and Oregon is an interesting one with Oregon down from 4 to 3.5 with juice. 79% of the tickets, 91% of the cash. So it looks like Oregon may have the cash percentage right now, but they are also public. And it's weird to see Oregon being the higher ranked team. I think Oregon is good, but I think maybe they're a little bit overranked right now because of how well they've been playing recently. I mean, they've been winning everything. They beat me in this game where I never should have lost USC plus the points in this one, man. I mean, that was a ridiculous loss for me there. USC had that game. That shows you something, though, because Oregon went on the road in a really difficult spot, in a sandwich spot, basically, off of what was basically their legitimizing win against Alabama, winning that tournament, and having this game against UCLA up next. They still won the game against USC, so that kind of shows you something. This Oregon team, they are definitely good. UCLA is not bad either, though, and they may be flying under the radar a little bit. The issue I would have with maybe wanting to try to play UCLA here is that UCLA really does not have any big games yet. I mean, the best opponent they faced was probably New Mexico. Sorry to Washington. I know UCLA beat Washington here. Washington's not very good, I don't think. And New Mexico is pretty good, but UCLA lost that game. And this is UCLA's first true road game. So for those reasons, I would actually lean slightly to the Oregon side in that one, but I don't want to play it at all. And the market looks like it is against it now with the cash percentage. These cash percentages are flying all over the place, man. So that's the other thing about these morning NCAA basketball market reads is you can't really pay a whole lot of attention to some of these market reads here. So I got to rely on the situation. But it does look like the market read is kind of against Oregon right now. And that is going to do it for college basketball. Let's go over to NHL. where I do have one play of the NHL. This is kind of a smaller NHL card. Not a whole lot of interesting things going on here. I believe Dallas is returning home from a road trip, which kind of puts them in a little bit of a bad spot, but they are a pretty big favorite against Calgary. Dallas, obviously the better team at minus 220, 88% of the tickets, 97% of the cash. Excuse me. So if you were going to fade Dallas in this one, then it would probably stand to reason that you would grab like a puck line on Calgary or something like that and hope they can just hang in the game. Dallas, I mean, they are not in the greatest spot. Like I said, they're returning home. It wasn't a long road trip, but it did take them into elevation, into Utah. And then they lost close games to the Kings and Vegas, which are both pretty big games. They don't have a big game up next, though, and it wasn't that long of a road trip. So I think that kind of mitigates that spot a little bit. So I don't really want to get involved in that. I don't know if there were really any other games here that I really cared to talk about that much. I mean, there aren't really any like giant games here where I'm like, oh yeah, like let's talk about this game. But I will talk about my one play in hockey, and that is going to be, let me add it to the banners here, kind of going against the public in this one, but I think this is a fade spot for the team that I'm fading here. Let me get this in. I'm playing on the Ottawa Senators, minus 140, or whatever the best you can get on this one is. It looks like Ottawa, they're down from minus 150 to minus 135. I don't like the market read in this one either, man. Ottawa, 69% of the tickets on them and 80% of the cash on the Islanders. This is going to go at 5 p.m. Eastern, and I'm hoping that these market reads just kind of start shifting on this because I don't want my situational handicapping to be so far off on this. But, like, it seems pretty simple to me, man. The Islanders have beaten me multiple times. I know my read on the Islanders has hurt me a couple of times. Recently, they lost that overtime game to Washington, but I think my read was right on that one. They never should have lost that game. And then I didn't have them right. I think did I play against them in this game against, no, because they lost this game against Seattle. I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but I think I was on the Islanders in some other game, and I think it was this game, and I lost on them against Seattle. Maybe I shouldn't have played the Islanders because maybe they had a look ahead to Carolina, but this is the deal, man. Islanders are on a back-to-back. Both of these teams are on back-to-backs, but the Islanders are the team that is having to travel and the team that's in the worst spot here. They just beat Carolina, man. I mean, that's a huge win. If you're this Islanders team and you're just kind of rolling along and you're basically having an overtime loss in a third of your games, I mean, the Islanders are just a middling team, basically, and you beat the Carolina Hurricanes. That's a huge win, man. Big, big win for the Islanders in that one. And now they're having to turn around and travel for this one game up to Ottawa. Are they really going to have that much focus for this Ottawa game? And they do have the LA Kings up next in 2 days. I know that's a Western Conference team, but the Kings have been playing pretty good hockey. So, I mean, that could be a look-ahead spot as well. So this looks a little bit like a sandwich spot to me. It looks like a weird travel spot. At the very least, I think it is a letdown spot. It's a third game in 4 days, and it is a fourth game in 6 days, with 2 of them being in different cities where they had to go up to Montreal, they came back home, and then now they have to go up to Ottawa in this like letdown situation. I don't like it. Ottawa, as I mentioned, did also play yesterday, so they are also in a back-to-back, but they had more rest before these 2 games. So they're playing a third game in 4 days, yes, but before that they didn't play since the first, so they had extra rest prior to these games, and they're not traveling. All 3 of these games are at home, so I think the Ottawa spot is much better here. None of these games are really against world beaters here, against Detroit, Nashville, and then they have Anaheim up next. So there really is nothing to really look ahead to. So I think you're going to get a focused Ottawa team still, and they're coming off a pretty easy win over Nashville here. So they had the far easier game yesterday. So I like Ottawa here. It looks like it's probably not going to be Ullmark and Ned in this one because it is a back-to-back, so it's probably going to be Forsberg. So I know that's going to be a step down in the goaltender situation for Ottawa. I would prefer it to be Ullmark, obviously, but Forsberg is probably going to be the guy. But it's not like the Islanders are really putting great goaltenders out there. And the Islanders may also be going with their lesser goalie in this one too, because Sorokin has played a bunch of games in a row now, and this is a back-to-back for them as well. So it might be Varlamov in this one. Varlamov, he has not been good in his recent games either. They've lost 3 straight games with him and Ned, and he gave up a decent amount of goals in all of them. So, well, actually 2-1 isn't that bad, or in a shootout, yeah, that was a fine performance there. But other than that, yeah, I mean, he hasn't been that great. So there's a reason why he's their second string goaltender. So give me the Senators in that one. And then we'll move over to NBA real quick here. NBA, I mean, a couple of games I'll talk about quickly here, I guess, in the NBA. Decent sized NBA slate. You got situations here where, man, I mean, Nuggets, Hawks. I mean, the Nuggets, what can you say about the Nuggets? They lost last night. I mean, they have not been playing very good basketball, and they lost last night to, who did they lose to? They lost to some bad team. I think it was the Washington Wizards. Is that who they lost to? The worst team in the NBA. Yeah, they lost to the Washington Wizards despite Jokic putting up 56 points in the game. I mean, he can't do it all. He cannot do it all. Denver, they're going to need other players to step it up. But they were coming off a string of big games where they beat Golden State. They lost to Cleveland, and that was another road game in a row. And they got caught. They lost to Washington, and they're on a back-to-back now. But are they going to bounce back because that game was so ugly against Washington? I don't know, man. Because, like, normally, yes, I would say that a decent team like Denver is going to bounce back off of a horrendous loss like that. But the fact that this is a fourth game in 6 days, all in different cities, actually a fifth game in 8 days, all in different cities, the travel spot, the rest spot, the scheduling spot still really doesn't look good for Denver in this one, man. So there's no way I'm going to try to play Denver in a bounce-back spot here. Even though Atlanta, they're coming off a nice win themselves. 2 days ago, they beat the LA Lakers in overtime. A nice win there. But Atlanta, I mean, they're starting to turn it on and play good basketball. I mean, they beat Cleveland twice in a row. Yeah, they beat Charlotte, New Orleans. Nobody cares about that. Milwaukee, not a horrible team. They beat them, and then they beat the Lakers in overtime. So they're on a nice stretch right now. So does that mean they're going to be in a letdown spot, or is that momentum going to continue? They at least have the better rest and travel spot here as they're just staying at home. And the Hawks are actually favored by 3 in this game with the public all over the Nuggets. 90% of the tickets and 68% of the cash. So the Nuggets look like a dreaded public underdog in this game too. Public expecting them to bounce back from that awful game last night. And maybe that's not going to happen here with how bad the travel spot is for them. So I would lean slightly to the Atlanta Hawks in that game. But man, I mean, it's like, I don't know if there's anything I really want to do with that one, anything I want to touch there. Cleveland, I mean, they did not have the letdown spot of beating Denver there, and they beat Charlotte, I believe, yesterday. So they're on a back-to-back and having to go down to the Miami Heat, who I believe had yesterday off. Miami's coming off a couple of nice wins, blowing out the Lakers after they lost to the Celtics. And then they beat the now Durantless again Phoenix Suns there. So Miami's coming off of that. But does that put Miami in the better spot? Maybe. I don't know, man. Cavs are up from 2 to 3. Heat, 57% of the tickets, 79% of the cash. I don't know how to read this game, really, between the Cavs and the Heat, so I'm going to stay away. But it is one of the bigger games on the NBA slate, so I figured I'd just talk about it for that reason. And then Suns Magic is a very interesting scenario where the Magic, they just can't get healthy, man. And now they lost Franz Wagner in their last game. So with Banchero out, Wagner became their star. Banchero, looks like he's supposed to come back on December 13th. We'll see if that actually does happen. But now Wagner is out. He looks like he's going to be out for like a month. So this Magic team, that does put them in an injured player theory spot, man. And you can see it affected the line big time with the Magic down from 7 to 2.5. 76% of the cash on the Magic and 79% of the tickets on the Suns. So the Suns drawing a lot of the public action here, even though they have the worst record. I guess the public may be reacting to Wagner going down here and being out in this game. But Phoenix is still going to be without Durant, I'm pretty sure, in this game. So I would still lean to Orlando in this one. I mean, it's a third game in 4 days for Cleveland. Actually, a fourth game in 6 days, all in different cities. Third straight road game. So the spot for Phoenix is really not very good. Phoenix is an injured team right now, man, mostly because Durant is still out. He's out until December 13th as well. Magic undefeated at home, man. Although I know they're going to be playing with a shell of a roster here. But Magic, I mean, the one reason why I can't play the Magic here is that they're returning home from a road trip. That is the only reason. Otherwise, I would be on the Magic here. I like the Magic side. I think Phoenix's rest spot and travel spot is still worse than Orlando's. Orlando is getting line value now because they're in the injured player theory spot. That line has dropped way too much, I think, on Orlando here. So I would only look to lay the 2.5 with Orlando in this one. Again, they're still undefeated at home, so they've been pretty good at home. They're going to be without Wagner, I know, but for that first game, the injured player theory spot, man, the team usually steps it up for that first game without that player. in there. The problem is, again, they're returning home from a road trip, although I know it only took them up the East Coast, but it was a 5-game road trip. They've been on the road trip for like over a week, basically, so that worries me a little bit. These long, extended road trips, when you return home, it does tend to be a little bit of a distracted spot, and is it possible they're going to overlook Phoenix? I don't know, because Wagner being hurt is probably going to give them the motivation to step up in this game, but Phoenix without Durant is maybe not the opponent that you're going to really have full focus on necessarily, man. So that's kind of the one issue I have with it. In Milwaukee, Oklahoma City up next, those are pretty big games, and even Miami and Boston kind of are, and then New York up after that, after another game against Miami. So I don't know, man. So I would still lean to Orlando just for the injured player theory spot. I think you are getting line value, and the market does look like it is on the Magic in that one. That is the way that I would look there. And then we got T-Wolves Warriors is a big game, and I believe this is a quick revenge spot. This is a back-to-back spot. T-Wolves Warriors playing each other twice in a row. Warriors have flipped from a 1-point dog to a 1-point favorite. I think they were a 2.5-point favorite in the prior game, so I think you are getting a little bit of line value on the Warriors. 92% of the tickets, 87% of the cash. The Warriors are public, though, with less of the cash, so not really something I want to get involved in, but the Warriors, they got hammered by Minnesota in this previous game, man. So Minnesota, big win for Minnesota. Minnesota's been playing kind of poorly, and they need to turn something around, man, because they are definitely a pretty talented team, pretty stacked team for the T-Wolves there. Big win for them to beat the Warriors. The Warriors were still without Draymond Green. Or no, they were not without Draymond Green. He just came off the bench, excuse me. I thought Green was still out in this game. Curry played in the game, but he didn't play particularly well. But now, I think that does put the Warriors in kind of the zigzag spot here, because the Warriors were a 2.5-point favorite in that game. They're only a 1.5-point favorite here, so it looks like you are getting a little bit of line value there, because unless somebody is injured and not playing in this game, which it looks like that's not really the case here, Wiggins looks like he may be day-to-day, but other than that, I mean, it looks like Curry is playing, Green is playing, whatever. So same lineup for the Warriors as the lineup was in the previous game. So what's changed? Nothing has changed other than that the T-Wolves beat them pretty badly, and now you're getting a lower line on the Golden State Warriors here. So I do think it is kind of that zigzag type of spot where the Warriors are going to be the team that has adjustments to make. So I expect the Warriors to maybe actually bounce back in this one, and that would be the way I would look in this game. Obviously, I'm not playing it, but the Warriors had a horrific shooting game, man. 39% from the floor and 28.2% from three. I mean, that is not really something that I think is going to be sustainable. I mean, I think when you shoot that badly, you're going to probably progress back to some sort of mean after that. So for that reason as well, I do like the Warriors in that one. Not a play for me, though. Jacob, what's up, man? My one play in the NBA, however, is on an underdog, and it is I don't think there was ever a 7 on this, so it is going to be plus 6.5 on this, and it is, which team was it? Let me see. Obviously, it's not one of the games I already talked about. Oh, shit. It is the Brooklyn Nets. Oh, my God. Actually, it was a plus 6 on the Brooklyn Nets. It looks like it's mostly 6 and 5.5s out there. I don't think it was ever 7. It looks like it was 6.5, and now it's down to 5.5 on the Milwaukee Bucks. 79% of the tickets and only 52% of the cash on the side of the Bucks. I played against the other end of that Bucks Celtics game last night, where the Celtics were in the back-to-back off of season sweeping the Bucks, and the Celtics got caught and lost. That was one of my wins. I know I had a bad day yesterday, 2-5. You had Louisiana's quarterback getting hurt in that game. You had 2 of my basketball games with just outlier field goal percentages in both of those college basketball losses yesterday. Kind of bullshit, man. In UNLV, and what was the other one that I had? Miami, I think. I'm just really not happy about it. And then Penn State outgained Oregon. They could have come within that number, and they didn't do it. And then the Chicago Blackhawks, of course, let me down after they were winning early 2-1 in the fired coach spot. They couldn't sustain that spark there. So bad day for me. We need to bounce back. I'm actually in the red on the year again, which is not good. We're coming to the end of the year. I know this has been a bad year. You guys have been following me, and I have not done well. I have not lived up to it. We got to turn this around. But Brooklyn Nets, I am fading the other side of that Bucks-Celtics matchup, because as I mentioned, when I faded the Celtics last night, and that was my best play last night, probably, the way the things worked out. Memphis with the outright win as an underdog. I'm still wearing another Celtics hat here, man. I don't like that the Celtics lost, but It was just one of those spots. Celtics were in a back-to-back, and the way the Celtics were hyping up that game against Milwaukee, they were acting like it was like a game of the season, man. They were acting like it was such a big win. It was crazy. I was like, holy shit, they're going to be in a letdown spot here. And I think Porzingis had not played against Milwaukee, and then he did play last night, so kind of a lineup shuffle there for the Celtics as well. But now we're fading the Bucks also off of that Celtics game. They've had one day off, but I don't like the spot, how it sets up for Milwaukee at all, man. I mean, they have played a couple of big games here, the last couple of games against Atlanta, who's been hot recently, and then the Boston Celtics. I mean, what bigger game can you get than your last game that you play against the Boston Celtics during the season? Celtics are now 3-0 against the Bucks on the season. I mean, this is Doc Rivers for the Bucks facing his former team. The Bucks have not been able to beat the Celtics this year, and the Celtics beat them again. And this was a game where Milwaukee was beating them in the second half, man. Milwaukee was beating them with 6 minutes to go. Milwaukee had a 4-point lead. This was such a big game for both teams, man. The Bucks almost pulled off the upset finally in their third shot of 3. Third time was not the charm for the Bucks, and they still lost the game. They wound up covering the spread. Huge game for the Bucks. So coming off of that, I don't see how the Bucks get back up off the mat that easily and focus on the Brooklyn Nets, who just have not been playing very good basketball. And up after this, Milwaukee's got Orlando, and I know it's an injured Orlando team, but Orlando's been one of the better teams in the conference, playing very good basketball. And then they got Cleveland up after this, so I think this is a sandwich spot. It's a second straight road game. I think they're going to overlook the Brooklyn Nets here. This is the least of the opponents here in this stretch. And I know you might say, well, they want to split this road trip. Yeah, but the game that they focused on in this road trip is obviously Boston, and they just didn't get there, and they almost had the win. The win was like right there in their grasp, and they couldn't do it. And when you have a game like that, getting back up off the mat is real tough, man. Looking at the Brooklyn side of things, Brooklyn, I mean, their record isn't that terrible. I mean, they've been playing okay basketball. At least they've started to play a little bit better. I mean, they had some wins in here against Sacramento and Golden State and Phoenix all on the road. That's not too bad. And now they just broke their loss streak. So I think this is a momentum spot for Brooklyn here. They had a loss streak where they lost to Orlando twice. I mean, Orlando, like I said, was playing pretty good basketball. And then they lost to Chicago bad. That's an ugly loss. And I think that was because they played real tough against Orlando the night before. It was a bad spot back-to-back. They had to go to Chicago. So they lost the game. I mean, that's probably why they lost it. But they bounced back from it, and they beat Indiana, who Indiana's not playing well this year, I know. But what I think that win will do is help them regain some confidence after having a loss streak. One of the best things for you when you're mired in a loss streak is to get a win, end that loss streak, and now you can move forward from that. You get that monkey off your back again. I know they've had multiple days off here, and that might stall some momentum, but I think that if you have multiple days off in a sport like basketball, it'll hurt your momentum more if you're on a win streak. If you're on a win streak, you really don't want to have multiple days off. But if you only won one game and that game ended a loss streak, I think the rest is okay. And I think you may continue to have that momentum after those couple of days rest. Brooklyn is the more rested team here as they've had 3 days off. And it's Milwaukee. I mean, I think they're going to be focused when the Milwaukee Bucks are coming to town. I mean, it's Giannis. And the other thing I like about this, one of my plays yesterday, I think it might have been one of my losses yesterday, what I forgot to mention is it was a really kind of like isolated game with a lot of rest on both sides of it. And when you have a spot like that, it does tend to be a game where a team is going to focus because this is the only game they're playing over a certain stretch. And that is the case with Brooklyn here. They have 3 days off before this and 4 days off after this. So they have nothing else to focus on besides this Milwaukee game, man. So I think Brooklyn is going to be focused here. It is a bad spot for the Bucks. Give me the points with the Brooklyn Nets +6, and that's going to do it for me, man. Let's have a good Sunday. Let's get some NFL plays right here. We got NFL one more time. You can go watch my analysis on my NFL video from last night. Tampa Bay -6.5, which I'm not liking the market read on this, but I like the situation. LA Rams +4. College basketball, Texas -1.5. Louisville +8.5. Hockey, Ottawa -140, and NBA Brooklyn Nets +6. That's going to do it for me. I'm Tower Getting Toad. Let's have a good one, man. Let's get back on the winning side of things. I hate this. I hated yesterday. Let's do it, and we'll have the college football playoff field will come out, and we'll discuss that at some, but I'll probably discuss it at the top of my next show, I guess, which will be tomorrow morning. Although, is it bowl selection Sunday too? Man, if it's bowl selection Sunday, maybe I'll actually come back tonight and I'll actually do a bowl preview show where I probably won't have any actual bets yet, but we can like start looking at all the bowls and breaking them down. I've never done that before though. So last year I just talked about each bowl as we went, like each day. It was a lot easier because it was like you only have certain numbers of bowls that you need to focus on each day. But with the bowls, it's crazy because the market moves so much on the bowls. And it's kind of like a trade-off of, do you want to jump in and get the best number really early without having all the information? And are you that confident in that read there on that bowl? Or do you want to wait for more information to come out? Because a lot of times that information that comes out later is going to be like, oh, this team is now resting all these players. And then if you have a play in that game, well, you're fucked, basically. So I do tend to like to wait for the most part in bowls, unless it's really a situation where I'm like, yeah, this team is definitely going to be a massively disappointed team, and I think you're getting the best of the number now. So we'll see. We'll see what I want to do about that. But it may be bowl selection and college playoff selection Sunday now. So we'll see if that is the case. That's going to do it for me for now, man. I'm Tower Gang Toad, of course. Follow me on Twitter and follow the Tower Gang Podcast. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. You can support us. You can get live pre-shows, post-shows, and you get to submit to the mailbag and hang out with us in a Telegram. That's going to do it for me. Tower Gang Toad once again. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We got 5 viewers here in one of these morning shows now. There we go. 5, a whole 5, baby. Peace out. Let's have a good one.